Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. Let's talk about Ben Shalom, a guy in which I haven't really spoken about on my channel. Of course, Ben Shalom being the head promoter at Boxer, and their shows of course are shown on Sky Sports. Sky Sports replaced Matchroom when they left with Boxer. And I have to say, Ben Shalom has been on Sky Sports now for what, 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that. I have to be honest, how this guy is a promoter, I have no idea. This guy has about as much charisma as an amoeba. I mean, every single time I try and watch this guy's interviews online, I watch these interviews and I see this guy just, it's like he's staring at me. He's got this blank, pale, emotionless stare. He kind of stares through the camera right into your soul. There is something very odd about this individual. He comes across almost as an industry plant because he's not a good promoter. Where did he get his money from? Who funded him? You know, how did he find himself in the position in which he's in? Because he kind of really came out of nowhere, really, you know. He did the Boxer shows way back in the day, 4 or 5 years ago, and they were basically low-rent versions of Prize Fighter. He did a few of them back in the day, but he wasn't a significant player in British boxing. And then all of a sudden, this guy gets a Sky contract, he starts signing various fighters, Olympians, etc. This guy's rise in boxing to me is very peculiar, and I would question it to a certain degree. I think there's far more going on there than meets the eye. And just he himself to me comes across super strange, super awkward. You know, when you think of a promoter, a good promoter, you know, you think of a guy like Don King. I know Don King's business practices weren't always the best, but he could sell the arse off a fight. For all of his faults, same with Eddie Hearn. I mean, look at Frank Warren in his prime, you know, even now he turns heads. Whereas this Ben Shalom guy, man, even watching him, like listening to his interviews, it feels like your soul has been drained. So yeah, I don't rate this guy as a promoter. Overall, I think Sky's link up with Boxer hasn't been a success. I've given it time, you know. Them filling the void of Matchroom was always going to take a long while, and I know towards the end, Sky's Matchroom shows weren't great, but honestly, I think Boxer is still some way behind those levels of shows. To be honest with you, the standard of matchmaking has been absolutely dreadful for up-and-coming prospects. I'm sick and tired of the quota-filling fights on cards. You guys know what I'm referring to there. You know, female boxing. Every single card, there's some trash female fight. And again, nobody, and I mean nobody, will convince me that that is due to demand. It's not. It's to fill quotas, let's just be honest. It's being forced down our throats. And yeah, Sky to me, Sky, Boxer, Ben Shalom, they just have that real soy vibe about them. Do you know what I mean? It's like super sanitized, it's super commercial, it's just fucking dull. It's really dull. And we've heard the news today that Ben Shalom has pulled out he's pulled out Fraser Clark from fighting Fabio Wardley for the British heavyweight title. That was due to go to purse bids today. Fabio Wardley is the British heavyweight champion. Fraser Clark is the mandatory. You know, in the last few weeks there's been a lot of talk in regards to that fight. When the news that it was going to be ordered for purse bids, Ben Shalom didn't seem too convinced. He apparently made an offer to Fabio Wardley, which according to Wardley was poor. And yeah, it went to purse bids. Well, it didn't even go to purse bids. Apparently Ben Shalom pulled Fabio Wardley out 10 minutes before the purse bid. And, you know, this was a fight in which was getting a little bit of hype among boxing fans. You know, a good domestic heavyweight title fight, a British title fight. Fans love those sort of fights. And yeah, many of us expected to get it, you know, but Ben Shalom has pulled his man out. Fraser Clark's been saying he wants that fight for a long time now. He's made his guy look like an absolute fucking tool bag. He's made him look a fool. And yeah, I think this really does kind of highlight how little faith Ben Shalom has in Fraser Clark. Fraser Clark, of course, was a really good amateur. He was a medalist in the last Olympics. What did he win? Bronze medal. So he's no slouch. He's no slouch, but as a pro, he's not really convinced me. The level of his matchmaking has been incredibly poor. And, you know, I think Ben Shalom probably sees Fraser Clark going away to Matchroom, fighting on the away card as too big a risk. I don't think he believes in Fraser Clark, quite frankly. Fraser Clark is now fighting in June against a low-level heavyweight called, I think his name's Harry Armstrong, who's like 5-1 with no knockouts, something like that. That's the level of matchmaking we've been getting with Fraser Clark. You know, this guy's no spring chicken. He's 32 years old. If he's not ready to fight for a British title now, what's the point? What's the point? I mean, and if you're going to pull out of such a fight, give us a better fight than fucking Harry Armstrong or whatever the fuck that guy's name is. Listen, man, this is poor. Especially, the worst thing about this is the board announced they would be ordering this fight a long while ago. Ben Shalom and Boxer had all of that time to pull their man out. But no, they raised the expectations, they raised excitement among fans, and then they snatched it away. Absolutely appalling behaviour by Ben Shalom, by Boxer, and it has to also lay with Fraser Clark. You know, talking the talk. I've seen him on conference calls with Fabio Wardley saying the right things, but when the time comes, you bottle it. They didn't even go into the purse bid. Absolutely sickening. Absolutely sickening. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, I'm more bummed out about the fact that, you know, that goes to show what these promoters think of us fans. You know, when Ben Shalom pulls a trick like that, that goes to show what they think of us. And I doubt any media members will grill him on this, because we've seen Ben Shalom vet questions from media. That clip came out of him telling media members not to ask certain questions. So that'll be very interesting. The next Boxer show, we'll see what journalists actually grill Ben Shalom on why he pulled out Fabio Wardley. Having said that, there is one silver lining. I would like to see the board now order Fabio Wardley versus David Adelaide. I actually think that's a more interesting fight. I think it'll be a more fun build-up. That's what I want to see personally. Fabio Wardley versus David Adelaide. Adelaide's been calling for that fight. I actually think that fight would be more entertaining. I know a lot of people are writing off David Adelaide, but I see a little bit of talent there. I know he looked dreadful against Sakalowski. I felt he lost that fight. But I think he's made some improvements since then. And I think him and Wardley would make for a good fight, a fun build-up. You know, it'd be exciting in my opinion. So that's what I want to see personally. But as for Fraser Clark, I said it on Twitter a few weeks ago. I like the guy as a person. He comes across really well. But he's just not inspiring whatsoever. His fights are boring. The matchmaking's boring. And here we have it. He's pulled out against Fabio Wardley. So I'm not interested in Fraser Clark. And as for Ben Shalom, I think it's time now to where the microscope needs to be held over him. He's been in the game now for two or 3 years, you know, head of Sky, well, the head promoter on Sky. To me, he's not delivered. I mean, what Boxer shows can you remember? The only ones I kind of enjoyed, I enjoyed Eubank versus Smith, and I enjoyed Kelbrook versus Amir Khan, despite, you know, that fight being way too late. I still enjoyed it for what it was. In all this time, I've enjoyed 2 cards on Boxer. 2 cards. I can't think of any other cards that they've put on that were entertaining. They are so forgettable. I feel like I'm suffering with fucking dementia. I don't remember any of them. Seriously. That's the level of quality that he's been serving up, or lack thereof. He needs to shape up. He really does. Absolutely shocking. Worst promoter in the UK in terms of the big three. Worse than Eddie, worse than Frank by a long way. But anyway, share your thoughts below. It's Beanie Guy Del Boy. Peace.